So, welcome to the Instructor Podcast, and not just any Instructor Podcast. Today, we have got a very super special Instructor Podcast Extravaganza. We have got 6 hours of phenomenal audio and actual video quality coming your way. Over the next 6 hours, I'm going to be joined by a whole host of guests. We've got Chris Spencer, Robin Bates, Keir Witherspoon, Lee Sperry, in fact, Lee Blackburn Rovers Football Club Sperry, Emma Morgan, and we're kicking off with the marvellous and ever delightful San Harper. How are you today, San?
Good morning. Yes, I'm even happier now. My lovely husband's just bought me a very large cup of tea.
Your husband who's broke his toe and you're making him run around after you.
Oh dear. No, bless him. He's very kindly bought that up for me. Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Terry. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. I will just say to start off with this, we have made no preparations at all in what we're going to talk about, and this goes for every guest that's going to come on. It's all kind of spontaneous. I've got a couple of notes down, but I think the first thing I would like to ask you, because you were the first guest on season 2 of The Instructor, and I think I'd like to ask you what you've been up to since then. Is there anything new and exciting going on? Because I've done your course since then, so we'll speak about that in a minute. But every time I text you, you seem to be like in a river or up in somewhere crazy where there's no reception.
Oh, funny. Do you know what? I'm losing track of time, Terry. I can't even remember when it was. When was it that we did that recording?
Oh, don't ask me questions like that. It was I believe it was the 1st of August it went out.
Oh, my goodness, it was a year ago.
No, this year.
Oh, this year. Was it? Oh, blimey, goodness me, I really am losing track of time. Yeah, wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been trying to be really conscious of, that whole thing about replenishing yourself, kind of filling up your reserves. You had a really busy week and you might be feeling a bit stressed or there's a lot going on. I've just been really, really conscious to make time to get out and do fun stuff, basically. Yeah, and I've done it every single week, but I have been really conscious and aware of it. And it's been good. And I've been dragging out another driving instructor, actually, when she's had some spare time. And she's lent me her stand-up paddleboard, which has been great. So we've had a good time.
I've been doing a little bit of that this week. I've got this week off from lessons and I've just taken, I think on Tuesday, Monday night, I turned my phone off. Well, I put it on airplane mode. I didn't turn it back on until Wednesday morning. Just the idea of getting away from the hustle and bustle and the grind, if you like, of the nonsense that we normally go for every day. And I think that I've been trying to get out a little bit every day and just breathe some fresh air, which is always great. Which I suppose kind of ties into what I would like to speak about a little bit, which is your course. Because when you first came on the Instructor Podcast back on, I'm pretty sure it was the 1st of August, we spoke about mindfulness. And a large part of that was around your course or one of your courses, since which I've done. So, before I tell you my experience on that course, and I'll sort of personally to you and to anyone else that's listening, tell us a little bit about the course.
What I wanted to do was, as you know, I've been an ADI for 18 years, and I discovered mindfulness, and I found it so amazing, and I was integrating it into my work, and it just got to a point where I just thought I really need to be sharing this stuff. So I've been planning for ages to make a course, something that I could share enough information about mindfulness to make it relatable, and for driving instructors to be able to use mindfulness for their own benefits, to make them feel better and maybe be able to cope with stress and anxiety and other issues such as pain. I used to suffer with chronic neck and shoulder pain. The first thing I did was I actually held a focus group with some local instructors. We had a conversation about what the issues are, with our jobs and the difficulties that some of us encounter, and that gave me some ideas really as to the issues that need addressing. And of course, we've all had pupils who suffer with anxiety, and we all know that it's a huge barrier for learning. A lot of these people are perfectly capable, to drive the car, but it's the whole stress and anxiety part that really causes the difficulties, especially around tests as well. So I put a course together. I just wanted to make it really comprehensive in that. And it's the same with teaching people to drive, and the same for me too. When I learn things, I like to understand something. It's all well and good somebody just telling me this is how it is, but I like to understand why. I want to know, well, why is that? What does that mean? So I wanted to devise a course that explained about what mindfulness was, dispelling any myths, explaining actually what's going on in the brain. So we kind of cover the science part of things, and then actually what's going on in the body. And then we just kind of go through some different areas with mindfulness. It's a very broad subject, as you know, Terry. So I just wanted to take some key things that I've learned, all the courses I've done, and all the events that I've attended, and all the things I've learned. I just wanted to cherry pick those key things that I found the most helpful, and I kind of integrated it into a 6-week course, and that includes meditations, and obviously there's downloadable slides as well. But does that answer that question? Probably not.
No, it does, because I think that, like you said, you've done a lot of it, and you're picking the key components out and offering that to others, and it definitely works. Mindfulness definitely works, and I think that one of the ways it works, I can give you a really relevant example now, in that just while you were talking, I tried to share the post on Facebook and it wouldn't, and I was still obviously paying you utmost attention, but then I twigged it because I'd set the privacy settings so that only I could watch it. I didn't panic, I took a breath, and then I changed the privacy settings and set it so now we can have people actually watch it, which, hopefully will be more beneficial than me just displaying it to myself. But I joke about that, but it's true that that's when mindfulness does help, because I suppose you, in that situation, you've got two choices. You can take a breath and deal with it, or you can have a meltdown. There's always room for middle ground, obviously, but I think that's the large part of what mindfulness, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's being aware of your experience and not trying to fight against it. And this is where a lot of us struggle, because we resist stuff. When things are going wrong, we go into that panic mode. And it's first of all to recognize what's happening to us physically, and it's our body's way of, our brain's way of trying to protect us. That raised heart rate, and our mouths go dry, and all these other physiological changes happen. So it's first of all recognizing that, and then it's learning ways to manage and control that, exactly as you just said. The breath is certainly a big part of that. But even for me, one of the biggest learnings for me, I have to say, is the way that it's helped with my emotional intelligence. It's helped me not sweat. It's not to not take things so personally. I had a message from somebody the other day who's had PTSD, suffers from PTSD, and they said it's not the big things in life that they find challenging. It's the little things. It's the silly little things. And the other day, it's not to say that I don't still get triggered by things and other people's behavior. I do, but I'm able to reframe it a lot more quickly. And a good example of this was the other day. I was helping the people to do a parallel path in a congested street, and a van came up behind us, tooting his horn, and then he pulled into the space that we were going into. And I was just a little like, whoa, what's with this guy? And I was triggered, I was a little perturbed, shall we say. And in another life, I might have kind of got out and I might have, said something, or I would have been angry about it. But what I did is it was the end of her lesson, and she got out of the car, and I just stood back and I watched this guy, and I realised he was delivering some white goods, some kitchen goods by himself, and he was panicking. He was panicking that he couldn't get a parking space to deliver this stuff. And when I realised that, all that annoyance and irritation just melted away, because I stopped taking it personally. Because before I kind of made it about me, like he was, being rude to me. His behaviour was rude and it was inconsiderate to me and my people, and I'd taken it personally. As soon as I stopped and actually watched what was going on, I was able to see actually it had absolutely nothing to do with me. it was all to do with his stress and his panic and his anxiety with what he was trying to do. And we've seen this. In fact, this kind of is quite a good segue actually to this whole subject about the fuel situation. You know, we've seen loads of posts on Facebook about people getting angry. And don't get me wrong, I know there's people who really are taking it to the extreme, you know, filling up extra containers and stuff. But a lot of these behaviours that we see with people that we get cross about, it all comes back and it all stems from some underlying fear that we often don't know the backstory behind, you know. And once we sort of start to see that, or when we can understand or realize the backstory, it helps to not take things so personally, and it helps to kind of not get quite so bugged out by things. Basically.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense, especially like with the fuel stuff at the minute, because as instructors, we need fuel to work. You know, we ain't got fuel, we can't drive. But there's other people, I think, sometimes that we're quick to forget that they might need fuel to get to work. Now, yeah, all right, there's ways around that in, you know, they could get the bus or a taxi or whatever, you know, so it's not in some ways as important. However, that's not necessarily always going to go in their head. They're going to have their priorities. They need to get to work. What time would they have to get up to get a bus if they had to start work 8 or whatever? So, you know, like you said, it's that overriding feeling sometimes. And you mentioned before as well about it being the little things that often trigger you rather than the big things. And I think that's key, because would you agree that sometimes when you get that big problem, you have that maybe the initial panic, but you then just deal with it. You're almost forced to deal with it. Yeah. Whereas the little stuff, it's almost niggly.
Yes, 100%.
You can avoid putting it off. So because you avoid it, it stays in the brain, just tickling away at you.
I think that's exactly it. And that's something I used to struggle with, is that rumination, is that pattern, you know, that niggly thought revisiting and circulating over and over again and driving me mad. That was one of my things I found really hard. So mindfulness has definitely helped me to be able to recognize when that's starting to happen. For example, like I said, I recognized the other day when I'd been triggered by this guy's behavior. It irked me initially, and it was just allowing that little bit of space then just to actually to try and see the bigger picture, you know. And sometimes it's not possible to see that bigger picture. I was talking to an ADI friend of mine the other day, and she'd rushed out and bought petrol, not because of fear of not being able to do her job, but her mum's really sick and she lives hundreds of miles away. And she had a fall recently, and she said to me, I've got to be able to get there at the drop of a hat, you know. And we just don't know, you know. And I think people are very, very quick to judge other people, but you just don't know what's going on for people. And a lot of these behaviors, be it aggression or panic or all these behaviors that we might sit in judgment when we're an onlooker, they're usually through somebody's fear, governed by somebody's fear, right? Something deep down.
Yeah, and I think we're too judgmental sometimes anyway, aren't we? You know, we're very quick to judge other people. As much as we're quick to judge ourselves, I think that we'll judge ourselves and then get defensive about it, but we're really quick to judge other people. But we initially started off talking about your course, and I want to touch back on that because I've just completed one of them. And so, yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for me to share with you and anyone else listening. And you're welcome to.
We haven't had a debrief, Terry. So yeah, feel free.
Well, it was crap. You had a bad attitude from start. No, it was really good, and you know, I'm sure that people watch this like, oh well, he would say that, you know, and it's like, well, yeah, I would, because I did it and it was good, so therefore I've got you back on to talk about it. So, I found it really beneficial. Maybe not necessarily in the ways that you would have intended. You know, I'm not sure if that's correct, but I just found it partly just through speaking to like-minded ADIs that wanted to learn and develop and hearing their experiences. So not just from my development and my growth, if you like, throughout it, but also from hearing other people's. It's like, oh, it's not just me. Because we've got quite a lonely profession. I'm coming off topic. I'll come back to that maybe, but yeah. So the thing I found, not so much helping my students, although I do use it to help some of my students. Some of them do like it. Now, speaking of which, I think there's one of us watching now. Hi, Georgia. It's it's to help me, and I think that it's got me better at taking a breath during lessons, because I'm someone that always wants to just help and fix people. So when that student starts struggling or they ask me a question, I go straight into what I would refer to as instructor mode, like bang, instructor mode, and then just start going and spouting words. And I'm guilty of that. And one of the things that you're constantly be just stopping and taking a breath and not being afraid to say to the student, just give me a moment to think about that. And they're fine with that. As long as they don't take 20 minutes and have a cup of tea while we're doing it, there's no problem with that. And I think that, in a weird way, is one of the best ways it helped me. I think the other way it helped me was because it's something that I'd been practiced anyway in terms of sort of meditation and being more mindful and gratitude and that side of it. I think it polished up a lot of that, and it put a lot more clarity behind the stuff that I was practicing. So I think from my perspective, maybe I wouldn't be going into it the same way all over ADIs will, but I just found it super useful. So yeah, anyone that's either watching now, and by the way, if you are watching, feel free to chuck in some comments. I'm happy to get involved with anyone in the comments, or for anyone that's listening, I highly recommend taking up Sam's mindfulness course for instructors. And I am still hoping to attend the other one, but we've discussed why that may not be going ahead.
Oh, thank you, Terry. I mean, I've got to say, the MBSR's running at the moment. So obviously the course you did was the 6-week mindfulness and compassion for driver and rider trainers. But there is another course, which is, I guess, a lot of people call it the gold standard of mindfulness courses. It's the original course developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's the guy that brought mindfulness to the West back in 1979, I think it was. And it's an 8-week course, and it's a little bit more intensive. Not so focused on the compassion side. It's pure mindfulness, really. But I've got 4 ADIs that have come onto this course because they enjoyed the last one so much and they really wanted to develop their practice. And that to me was just, I was just so thrilled that course has just whetted their appetite to that extent that they're keen to develop their practice further. So it's been fantastic. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to take a moment just briefly to say hello to Robin Bates, who has joined us and said hello. And I'm also going to take a moment. Oh, Emma Morgan says hello also. But I'm also going to take a moment to say hello to my mum, who has now joined us, who is watching. So hi, mum. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. I know we've just spoken about that. In fact, for anyone that didn't listen to the podcast, I want to touch on it briefly, the idea of mindfulness, because we just spoke about your course, but for anyone that hasn't listened, how would you describe mindfulness and the benefits of it?
Okay, so it's a way of being with the world. So it's not something that it's not a tick box exercise. And as ADIs, we're kind of used to that CPD being something that we go away, we learn, we go tick, yeah, I got that, I get it, I understand it. It's not like that. It's a way of being. What it is actually defined as paying attention in a particular way, on purpose and non-judgmentally. That's how Jon Kabat-Zinn defines it. But I guess you could sort of say it's a bit like having a yoga practice. Like I couldn't teach you a bit of yoga today and then expect you to do the splits next week. I mean, that's just not gonna happen. But it's learning a way of being, and that there's 2 types of practice. There's an informal practice, which is meditation, mindful meditation, and that's what helps to allow us to focus the brain. So this is where the brain changes come in through this focused attention. So we've got something called neuroplasticity, and what that means is we can change the way that our brain responds to stress. So ordinarily, certain chemicals get fired off when we're in a stressful situation. Our body is a biological response to stress. But through meditation as a practice, it starts to strengthen the parts of our brain responsible for when we're the parasympathetic nervous system, when we're chilled out, when we're soothed, and it helps to calm down. It's like turning the volume down on the parts of the brain that get stressed out. So that's the first thing. It's actually that brain changes that can come about through the meditations. The second thing is something called an informal practice. And that is, like you've just said, it's integrating that way of being into your life. It could just be taking a couple of seconds even between what you're doing, a couple of minutes between lessons, just to sit and just come back to your drop out of autopilot and just come into the present moment and just think, actually, how is it for me right now? And one of the biggest things for me, when I talked about pains, I used to come home in absolute agony. I used to have to take painkillers because being sat in the car all day, I'd be in an awful lot of pain. But because now I'm able to come out of autopilot regularly throughout the day, I recognise when that tension's starting to creep in, and it manifests in my jaw and in my back, and I can start to feel it creep in. But now I recognise it's happening, and I can breathe into that space, or like you say, I can say to the pupil, should we just take a minute? I can sense when they're getting stressed out and tense as well. So these informal practices can be really helpful as well, just coming out of that autopilot that we all spend a lot of our lives in, back into that consciousness. And when we're in that place of consciousness, we see what's going on, be it we're starting to get in pain, we're starting to get stressed, people around us are starting to get stressed, it's almost like you can step back a little bit. You become the watcher of that experience rather than falling down the rabbit hole and getting caught up in that whole story. A lot of it's a story that we make up in our heads around the story behind whatever's happening. We don't get caught up in that story. You kind of step back and you become the watcher of that experience. And through becoming the watcher, you can then take a much more, a different kind of response comes about. And you come from that sort of wiser place that we've all got inside of ourselves that we kind of forget about sometimes. That deep down wisdom, we kind of feel a bit wiser. And for me, I feel like I've got my best mate kind of with me. Somebody's got my back, and that person's me. And that's just something that you kind of learn to cultivate for yourself.
There's a couple of bits there's a couple of bits I want to pick the meat off the bones there. But before I do, there's a lot of love for my mum in the comments right now. She's good. People saying hello to Terry's mum, which is always nice.
Hello, Terry.
But yeah, one of the things that, again, going back to your course that you helped me with, and I remember speaking this on the course, is my focus while I'm doing podcasts, because my eyes go all over the place. I try not to look at the screen too much, which isn't great when I'm doing a live video. I appreciate that, but I do get screen fatigue quite easily. So if I try and look around, so I'm not staring too much. But one of the things you helped me with was the 50-50 listening, where, when you listen to someone, your mind just wanders off. Well, that 50-50 listening, so you focus on the body parts. So often when you're talking, not you specifically, whoever's on this talking, I'll focus half my brain on my right knee. And weirdly, it helps me focus a lot more on what the person is saying, which, you would think it wouldn't. You would think you're putting your brain somewhere else, but what you're doing is you're stopping your brain wandering.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're using an anchor, which is coming back to the body, and you're just anchoring that attention. And like you say, even though you're only kind of giving 50% of your attention, it's still more than completely wandering off and completely losing focus altogether. And a lot of people find that really, really helpful. And I use my thumb, and it's something that I do a lot when I'm listening. I go very still when I'm using 50-50 listening, and I just I had a friend recently. I was talking to her about it a while ago, and she said to me, "You're doing it to me now, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Oh, I don't like it. It feels weird." I said, "That's probably because we're not used to it. We're not used to people giving us their full attention, are we? Because you're always like you're chatting and people interject and you don't get to finish what you're saying because people speak, So she was like, "Oh, this is weird," but it was great, and the conversation we had was a lot maybe richer than maybe it would have been, and I felt that the things that I said were a lot more value because I waited to listen, to when she'd finished speaking. Yeah.
I think the other thing it's done, and I don't know if this is just a byproduct of it or was intentional, but it makes me notice when I'm not paying attention. So if I was like just now, I checked on here to look at the comments, and it's like, oh, I'm not thinking about my knee, which means I'm not listening properly, and it brings me back. And I do it with wife, I do it with everyone now. Like you say, then face-to-face conversations. It's weird that you're paying more attention whilst thinking about something else. It's an odd one, but I also want to touch back because you mentioned about where the stress, if you like, manifests. You mentioned the jaw clenching, and that's mine, and it still happens. And it's weird because I mean, even last night, I'm laid in bed. I was listening to something in bed, and I'm like, all of a sudden, I realised my jaw is just like that. It's like, how long has it been like that? You know, and you don't realise till you realise, and then you slacken it off. Then I'm aware of it, and then I can relax. Then I'm dozing off 5 minutes later because I've taken the tension out of my face. So,
you know what? Exactly what you just said. It's that awareness. I was doing something the other night online with some ADIs that didn't know anything about mindfulness, never experienced it before, and I did a very short practice, and I asked them to feedback how it was, and one of them said it was kind of neutral, and I said, have you noticed any change? Have you noticed anything? Have you noticed any changes around your heart rate and your breath? And they went, oh, my heart rate slowed right down. I hadn't noticed that, but it had happened, but they hadn't even noticed it. Because I guess before they were, you know, sometimes when you're on an online thing, your heart starts beating when you know you've got to speak. You're a bit nervous, you know, speaking in front of other people. After the practice, they hadn't noticed that had even happened. Because most of the time, we're only conscious from the neck up. We're only conscious from this part. We really don't tune into what the body's telling us, that mind-body connection. The body can tell us so much as long as we listen, like you say. And it's not just that listening, audio listening. It's a much bigger scope, isn't it?
Yeah, and we were talking sort of before the show. Yeah, because 6 hours isn't long enough for me to talk, so we needed to talk before the show as well. And yeah, jeepers. So we were talking before the show, and I've forgotten what point I'm going to make now. I'll come back to that.
So was it about the grounding?
Yeah, and you asked me because I was saying I was a little bit nervous, but I wasn't nervous about doing the show. Whereas a year ago, I wouldn't have done this. I do lives in my little group, but I know that the 100 people that are in there or the 30 people that are in the other one or whatever, I've no concerns about that because I know them and they know what to expect from me. Whereas I think doing this a year ago, it just won't happen. I'd have been too nervous. But like now, not just through mindfulness, but through a whole host of stuff, I'm fine doing it. But I could feel myself starting to panic. Like, what if there's a power cut? I've committed to do a 6-hour podcast extravaganza. What if there's a power cut halfway through? Then I'm not doing it. And I did essentially a grounding session. I just sat here, closed my eyes, took some breaths just for 3 or 4 minutes, and just everything just went, and it's all just nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it worked a treat. And they come in, and yes, there's a little bit of twitch. I'm just thinking, don't cut out. But like I said at the start, I put the feed up in a private only feed, so it's only me that can see it, and I'm wondering why no one's tuning in. Whereas we're having like 9-10 live watchers throughout ever since I put it on the thing, and it's just not bothering me. Like, all right, I'll change it.
It's only you and I, Terry. No, it's only if we just think it's just you and I, we won't get nervous then, you see. No one else is listening.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit the one that does still terrify me is public speaking. I'm not so keen on public speaking.
It's funny you should say that because I'm speaking at the Instructor show, the Intelligent Instructor ADI and JC one.
Yeah.
That you're going to as well, aren't you? And I've got to stand up for half an hour and speak, and I've not done that before. I don't think. Maybe a long time ago on a different subject. And the way I look at it is I've just got to practice what I preach, because now I've got the tool. I know I'm going to feel nervous. I know I am. But I know, like you just said, the grounding, and sometimes you just have to keep coming back to it, coming back to the breath, and just helping that body to heart rate to settle, because the mouth goes dry and the heart rate goes fast, and we start to shallow breathe. And this is what we see with our pupils, so we can sort of relate to it.
Yeah, And I think it's acceptance as well. If you accept that you're going to be nervous about something, you're
Yeah,
not going to be as nervous because you're not getting nervous about being nervous.
exactly. Yeah, it is acceptance. Can I accept I will be? I will be nervous, and there's nothing I can do about that. But I can just use the tools that I've learned and that I now share with other people, and it'll be fine. But it's interesting. Do you remember one of the sessions I said to you, I felt a bit discombobulated? Something happened, and I said, "Oh, I said sorry about that. I feel a bit discombobulated." And you, which I love that word, and you said, "Do you know what? If you hadn't have said anything, we would have never have known." And that's it, isn't it? I think a lot of the time we're worried about how we're perceived. We're worried about people can see the fear, they can smell the fear come off us. But people, by and large, people don't tend to really notice, do they? I think a lot of the time we're just worried how we're going to come across, aren't we? We're worried how we're going to look or how we're going to be viewed by the people. That's really what the crux of it, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Sorry, I did get slightly distracted there because look, it appears my mum is taking over the comments now. She's apologised for not responding sooner because she's been making my dad's lunch. So, hi, mum. Yeah, so, but I mean, how do you feel about presenting the ADI NJC? Because, like you said, you've not done that before. I mean, you must be pretty happy about that. And also, I suppose, would it make you feel better, a little bit less nervous if I did some heckling from the crowd?
Absolutely, Terry. Oh, I'm relying on you to do some heckling. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know, Terry. It's funny because this is one of the things I've learned is non-striving. So not really, it is what it is. I'm preparing as best I can. And I'm just going to go out there and just do my thing. And I get it. I guess it's accepting I have no control over how it's perceived. And I think just authenticity and being honest. If I dry up and forget what I'm going to say, I'll just say, okay, this is a really good moment to demonstrate how mindfulness can be really helpful when you forget what you're going to say and your mouth dries up, because these things happen. And if it happens to me, then I'll just say, this has happened and this is what I'm going to do. And I'll just take a moment. And just breathe. And I guess it's just being honest and just going with the flow. Yeah, I'm not thinking too hard about it, actually. With the best way.
Good stuff. We also mentioned before, you mentioned before about chilling out, you use that phrase, and I think that's quite key. I think that as people, we don't do that enough. Obviously not everyone, there's people that do it, but it's something that I'm used to be bad for, and I'm getting better and making an effort to improve upon. But one of the things that I used to have this mental block about chilling out or kicking back or whatever, that I couldn't move. For me to relax, I've just got to do nothing. I've got to sit down and watch telly, and that's how I have to unwind. And it's not. It's like you were saying before. I made the joke when we started about every time I message you in a different river somewhere. And is that your way of unwinding? Is that your way of chilling out?
That's a good question. Is it my way of unwinding? It's I love being in nature. I think it's recognizing what feeds you. And a lot of us don't know what that is. I think that's difficult if you don't actually know what it is that nourishes you and regenerates you, And that can be all different things to all different people. Many different people have got different things that they love. My husband loves to go fishing, and I love to be in nature. And I'm not a very good swimmer, actually, but I love to be around water and in water. And I actually got myself a life vest so I could just go and be in water and not, go out my depth. And it's all been fantastic. So I suppose it's just recognizing what feeds me, and that's exactly it. Being out in nature, walking, being near water, in and around water, and being aware that that's a necessity for me. And if too long a time goes by without me being able to experience that starts to affect me. And then I'll start to notice, I'm feeling a bit fed up this week. I'm feeling a bit, not myself, a bit narky or whatever. I think I need to kind of replenish myself. We need to fill up our own cups, don't we? If we've got nothing, if the cups run dry, then we've got nothing to give. And I think we can all relate to that with our lessons. We've all been there when you've had a long day and you think, God, I feel like I'm just dry. I've got nothing. My mouth's dry. And it's hard to give from an empty cup. And that regeneration, replenishing can come from all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think as well, one thing I've learned anyway is it's not all. You can almost give yourself more time before you need to replenish by putting blockers in. So, like for me, I try and block out some of the negativity. So, I try and have a social-free Saturday, and every Saturday I'll try and come off social media. Just there's that one day a week where I'm not seeing all that what is largely nonsense. And I love social media. You know, I love interacting with people. I love it's a great tool. It's a great resource, and there's some brilliant things about it. But it's very much in your face. So I'll have that. Try and have that one day a week. And I think I mentioned before the Tuesday of this week, I phone switched off all day. I'm not talking to anyone. You know, no one's giving me any stress. And I think that by taking those things out, it actually reduces the need to replenish. You can actually go a bit longer, if you like, in between. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, but it certainly helps.
I think what you're talking about, it sounds as if you're recognizing what drains you.
Yeah.
Because there's drainers and sustainers, and this is something we talk about on the course, isn't it? And you've recognized a drainer for you, and so that you're trying to find a way to so that you don't get drained, your battery doesn't get drained quite so quick. Maybe.
See, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a reason why on this show I bring in what I refer to as leaders, experts, innovators, and game changers, because you can say stuff like that, whereas I waffle on for 10 minutes making no sense. So it's great that you phrase it that way, because you're right, that's what it is. I notice the stuff that drains me, and I notice the stuff that replenishes me. And for me, like podcasting is one of the ones that boosts me. You know, and the reason I had no worries about doing a 6-hour podcast extravaganza today is because I'll be fine.
Yeah.
I love it. I'll enjoy it, you know, and I've got people on I want to speak to. And even just on that note, I can't remember why I did it. There was a reason for it, but I did a post recently about, I remember what it was now. A couple of my guests had messaged me and said, relayed messages they'd had about their appearance on the show. So people had heard them on the show and messaged them, and I'm like, really pleased. My initial brain went, why aren't they sending that to me? But then I take a step back and it's like, no, because that's not what I am. My role in this has always been to be a conduit. It's to give you guys a showcase and just to be that, I say that conduit, and that's how it works. And I'm really good at that. And I know I am, you know, and again, a year ago, I won't admit that publicly, but I am. And it's like I come in and I do that. So when I might have these sort of almost a genesis of an idea or a genesis of a conversation, you guys can then just make that sense of that. I'm exaggerating slightly, but you guys then take that gobbledygook that I'm talking and make sense of it.
Well, yeah. Sometimes I know what you mean about gobbledygook. It's hard, isn't it? Sometimes the words flow easier than others, but yeah, I think it is recognizing what, it's all about those drainers and sustainers, isn't it? And recognizing that. And I suppose this is what the course, in fact, you said exactly that, didn't you? At the beginning, you said you kind of knew a lot of this stuff, but it just helped to clarify and have a bit more, it just kind of helped to set those things out a little bit clearer. And one of those subjects was precisely this, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I think because it was tailored to ADIs, it helped just relate to the job we're in as well there, because I mentioned before that it's quite a lonely profession in a lot of ways. And it's only really been this year that I've stepped out of that loneliness and actually embraced other ADIs. I think when I first started, the ADIs that I would meet at test centres and the ones I'd see online, it was just this wall of negativity. But since doing this show, since initially doing the 5-Minute Theory podcast and then doing the Instructor Podcast, it's like, I was saying this to someone recently, it might have been Lou Walsh, but it's just opened up this, there's all these awesome people over here as well, which is cool. We are about 2/3 into the show, and one thing I would like to ask, well, time flies when you're having fun, Sam. You know, one thing I would like to ask you in particular, because I've asked a lot of ADIs this, and I value your opinion, because we don't normally get into the nitty gritty of teaching. We talk about the side roads that, excuse the pun. The standards checks and the fact that standard checks are now tied in with, or probably been announced that they're going to be tied in with pass rates and all that. malarkey. I think I'd be interested in two things. Firstly, have you noticed more people coming to you because of that? And I suppose, secondly, your opinion on that.
I haven't. No one specifically said that. I do know that for a lot of people it is a concern, but no one's actually voiced that to me personally. How do I feel about it? Right at this moment in time, in all honesty, I don't really quite know how I feel about it. And that's my honest answer. I wish I could sort of say something a bit more, I don't know, captivating, or a bit more, something with a bit more value. But I don't know how I feel about it, Terry, to be honest. That's not very helpful, is it?
Do you know what? It's actually quite refreshing, because I think everyone I've spoken to so far has had quite a strong opinion. So it's quite nice with someone that's a little bit like me that still doesn't have that formulated opinion, because it seems like every person I speak to, my opinion changes slightly.
I think with the mindfulness thing, coming back to that, I guess it's back to that idea of I can't control it. I've got no control over what's decided for us. I know we can, there's focus groups, there's people making petitions and all that kind of thing, but ultimately we are governed by what is, the DVSA, what they decide how that's going to work, and we have no control over that. And I suppose for me it's just accepting that's how it is, and just being open-minded and curious. Think, well, okay, let's just see kind of how this works. That's honestly how I feel, because I thought, well, what else can I feel about that? I could get really upset about it and cross about it. Will that change anything? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have thought. So that's kind of where I'm at, really.
Yeah. Cool. I also want to ask you, I don't know this actually. I don't know if I asked you previously and I've forgotten or what. Are you a podcast listener?
Yeah, I love Brené Brown. So I like to listen to Brené Brown. I've listened to a bit of Gwyneth Paltrow. So yeah, a couple I have listened to. Yeah.
Now, well, in fact, that kind of answers my question, because I was going to say, aside from this one, aside from the Instructor Podcast, which would obviously be the top of your list, what would you have any recommendations for us podcast-wise? But you've mentioned a couple there. Will there be any more than that? Or?
Oh, I'd have to. Oh, what are the other podcasts? Obviously, there's other people. Obviously, there's you, and there's other people doing fantastic work within our industry, who I know you know as well. I don't want to sort of plug them on your show, but cool.
No, plug them. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but it's one of the big things about my show.
Yeah.
Is that I've always tried to use it as a platform for instructors. I get people from outside the industry as well, but I know Mick Knowles, his podcast is back in today. I think it launches today. I think it's today. And he put a post up the other day, and I'm sharing it on mine. And every now and again on the podcast, I'll mention it, because I want to listen to a podcast as well. So there's that one and Dipod, but this has always been a platform for showcasing other ADIs.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's lovely. I think I posted, it's great to hear that. And I know you guys have spoken on the podcast together. Yes, and so obviously Mick Knowles. Who else? Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of the time I just listen to random stuff. I love, there's so many people in the field of mindfulness that I really love. Kristen Neff, I find her stuff fascinating about mindfulness and compassion. There's Tara Brack. There's just loads of people, really. Rick Hansen, obviously John Kabat-Zinn. Yeah.
Would you like a podcast fact? I've noted down 6 podcast facts. Would you like a podcast fact?
No. Yeah, go on then.
Well, that's really anticlimactic if you just left it. No, I wrote down 6 facts especially. I'll give you the first one. There's over 2 million podcasts currently, or at the end of 2020, so there'll be more now, but over 2 million podcast shows with over 48 million episodes.
Goodness me.
It's quite a lot.
Thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm one of 2 million. And when I look at statistics like that, sometimes I think it's important to take a step back and go, yeah, I'm doing all right, And I think we're quick to compare and quick to judge, but when you look, there's over 2 million.
That's brilliant. And we all bring something unique, don't we, to the party, whatever we're doing. Nobody else can do us quite like us.
Yeah. I'm also going to make a podcast recommendation, and I'm going to try and tie this in with each guest a little bit. And podcast I'm going to recommend now for anyone listening or watching, and I'm not putting a link up, so you'll have to find it yourselves, but I think you'll probably enjoy this one as well, Sam, is the Richard Nichols podcast. He was actually, I think, guest number 4 or 5 on this season of the show. It's got a premium podcast that you can pay like 10 quid a month for, and you get weekly episodes, but he does a monthly episode, and it's only about 10-15 minutes long, and it's really nice. He's a psychotherapist, and it's just tips around, mindfulness and confidence, all that side of it. And it's just really pleasant. Also, go back and check his episode out as well, because it was a brilliant episode. But yes, that will be my podcast recommendation.
Oh, thank you.
The Richard Nichols podcast. So that's that. And
I listen to things and then I kind of forget who I've listened to. I just kind of randomly come across stuff. I listen to YouTube. I use YouTube quite a lot too. Right. Like watching stuff on YouTube.
Well, this is going out on YouTube at some point. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's another thing to do. But I'm starting to schedule time for stuff now, so it will be going out on there, at least an edited down version of it. How do you find coming on podcasts? Because I know you've been on a few now. This is the second one you've been on, and I know you've been on Mix and that kind of. How do you find coming on podcasts as a guest?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, like you, Terry, a year ago, I would have been really nervous. I guess I hadn't. When did I first do one? I probably did one. Maybe I'm losing track of time, honestly. Because maybe 2 years. I don't know. But I know the first one I did, my heart was beating and I was really nervous. But now I ground myself before I come on. So I just take a moment just to settle and come out of the head and all the rest of it. But no, it's really good. And I hadn't thought about any agenda. I hadn't thought about any topic. I just very much going with the flow and see what comes along. Yeah, but no, it's been good.
When you were on the show last, I did the quick fire questions at the end, and I'm trying to use my brain and memory now, which are always the most reliable resources I've got. But I think I asked you about a goal going forward, and one of your goals, I believe, was to introduce mindfulness to the ADI masses. Do you feel like you're starting to achieve that a little bit? I know there's a long way to go, but do you feel like you're starting to achieve that?
I really do. I mean, just from the feedback I've had from the people like yourself who've done the course, and obviously, like I say, I've got these 4 that are doing the MBSR. We've got there's more people that signed up for the course already, which is happening in November. So I'm really excited to be doing that again. Obviously, I'm getting invited to things, invited to speak at the Instructor show. I'm developing I'm actually hopefully be getting involved with some research, because some research has actually been done that has shown that mindfulness actually has a positive impact on driver attitude. So there's the prospect of getting involved with some research around that. I want to take this further with regards to the fleet industry, for professional drivers. I really do believe in this work, as you know. And I know that it's been implemented in schools more and more now, and into sports, and the research is there. This stuff it works. But it's like anything, it's a practice. It's not just a tick box, get that now. That's not going to work. It's having a change of mindset. It's being able to reframe your reality, I guess, is the best way to put it. You relate to things. You can't change the things around you, but you start to relate differently to them.
Yeah.
And it's like I say, a bit like you with yoga. The more you do it, the more flexible, the stronger and more flexible you become. And with mindfulness, you become more mentally stronger and mentally more flexible. So it's like yoga for the brain. That's kind of probably quite a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
I mean, my yoga's gone down a little bit recently. I set the goal of doing yoga every day this year, and I think I got through till about August or end of August, and then I missed a day, and then I sulked because I missed a day and missed a few days, and then it's been really sporadic, so it slipped a bit recently, but I'll kick back on again. In fact, screw it. Tomorrow, 1st of October, kick back on. New month, we can go then, and I can do the rest.
I need to do. I'm the same. I used to yoga every morning as well, and I've slipped a bit. So perhaps we should make a pact, Terry.
Yes, accountability buddies.
Yeah.
Yoga accountability buddies. There we go. Every day we'll message each other and be like, "Have you done your yoga?" And I'll say non-judgmental, but feel free to judge me and shout at me if I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Go on.
I was going to say, keep doing what you're doing. I'm massively impressed with not. First and foremost, the resources you provided. You know, the course went on. I'm massively impressed by that, and it's benefited me, and indirectly then benefited some of my students and some of the people I'm around. I had a message from a student, I think it was last week, who'd said that I've had an effect on her because she's now using my mindfulness and my positivity on her child who just started school and who was struggling. And it's like, how awesome is that? Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing, because I think the other thing that we don't always recognize the impact or the way we're growing. You know, it's little things like it's almost indirect growth. So when I was asked to appear on the Project Edward podcast recently, and they're asking me about different stuff there, I was talking about mindfulness, and it's like that's going out to a different group of people, and that's come, you know, partly through working with you. And I think that you wouldn't necessarily see that, if that makes sense. You don't always see the growth. I mean, I've got a friend who's on a dating website who was talking to a driving instructor on this dating website who spoke about my podcast. I think it's like that's weird. It's, you know, it's you don't always see the growth you're having or the impact you're making.
Yeah, it's true. But like you say, Terry, it kind of does. It starts to inform so many other areas of your life. And one of the ADIs on the MBSR, who was on the course, I think it was in the first course, the course that you did, said his wife has really noticed the difference in how he is, and it really starts to filter through. And this is why it was important to me to devise a course where people were able to actually embody mindfulness, you know, actually practice it, and it filters through. You know, we start to introduce these practices into our lives, and we relate differently to the world, and things start to change for us. And it almost like by osmosis, it kind of starts to filter through us to our pupils, because it affects our stress levels, it affects the way we relate to people, it affects our ability to listen and to communicate and to, you know, maybe not judge and all these other things. And it just sort of rubs off, I guess.
Definitely. As we're coming towards the end of this podcast, I am aiming for some kind of smooth transition from one guest to the other. You are the first, so this is going to be interesting. But before we do that, I'm going to give you the opportunity to promote yourself, tell people where you can find you. And the other thing I'll say as well, when you come off, you're more than welcome to go and put those links in the comments as well, because with 6 guests, I'm not putting all those links in the show notes. That's too long-winded for me. But you're more than welcome when you come off to go and put the links where people can find you in the show notes. But where can people find you, and what have you got to flog?
Okay, well, you can find me online. It's guildmdt.com, which is the Guild of Mindful Driver Trainers. And you can see I've got reviews on Google, so you can check those out, see what other people have said about me, people such as Terry and a few others. And there's a course that's starting. The next course is starting, I think it's on the 11th of November, and you can find that through my website, and it's in association with the DIA. So the DIA have been very much being on board with this as well. So that course is happening, and there are a few spaces left on that. We've got the MBSR running at the moment. But yeah, I mean, just get in touch if you're interested. And there is a free, for people that have done my course, I hold a free practice session every Tuesday, because I don't want people just to do a course and then I just go, okay, see you later, nice knowing you. I want to kind of help people to continue with this, you know, and it's been really lovely, actually. Our Tuesday group, we've got ADIs from the first and second course, and it's just been really, really lovely, and it helps them to sort of have deeper understanding. They can ask questions, and so that's been really lovely too.
You're shaming me slightly because I haven't been to that Tuesday catch-up one.
You're a busy guy, too busy doing podcasts. But you will, I'm sure, when you get a free Tuesday, Terry.
There's a bit of truth in that. So a couple of things. I'm going to say hello to Annie Gendron, who has said hello in the comments. Annie is a future podcast, and she's also doing some brilliant work behind the scenes that's going to be coming up in the Instructor Podcast premium subscription. The other thing that I was going to ask you was, do you have a favourite decade?
Well, it's got to be the 80s, isn't it? I'm a child of the 80s, you know. We're talking ABBA, Duran Duran, Adamant, Culture Club, yeah?
The reason I ask is because I also run another podcast called Decapod, and we're currently reviewing the 90s.
Nice is pretty good too.
It is. It's a little bit more my area, but area. What word is it? Era. Yeah, era. But I am looking forward to getting onto the 80s. So the way we've scheduled it out, that's I think that's like the last decade we're going to cover. Decapod, yeah. What I would say, don't listen if you're easily offended. It's
I definitely won't listen then, Terry. I'm very easily offended, don't you know?
But no, make sure that you go and check out, whether you're listening or whether you're watching, make sure you go and check out Sam's stuff, because it's awesome. And what I will say, and you can touch on this as well a little bit before we go, I keep noticing online the negativity and it's not just ADIs, I know it's not, but it's, that's our industry, but the negativity and the reluctance from ADIs to invest in stuff and to pay for stuff. And apparently, if you are selling something or providing a resource for ADIs, the only reason you're doing that is to make money. And it's a bit like, yeah, there's some truth in that. Of course there is. It's a business. Not just you, but anyone. If I were to start doing standard checks workshops tomorrow, in fact, no, screw it. The Instructor Podcast Premium, which people pay the subscription fee for, yeah, I'm doing part of that to make money. I'm not trying to become a billionaire. I want to make money doing that so I can invest more time into it.
And the thing is as well, like I've had to cut back on my learners because of the work I'm doing with mindfulness. And I provide a free class every Tuesday. I have to prepare for that. I do podcast, I really appreciate the platform that you and Nick have given me as well. And, I went and met an ADI for coffee the other day. And I'm passionate about this work, but it means that the more I do of this, the less I can teach, which means I can't earn. That's my revenue stream being depleted there. So obviously I've got to make these classes, I've got to find a way to sort of sustain myself. Of course. And it's the same for everybody, isn't it? But do you know what? I'd do it for free if I could. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I'd do it anyway, because I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think that's the key thing, because as well with that, if I'm playing devil's advocate, which I try not to do too much, but if I'm playing devil's advocate, the response to that is, well, if you've got to drop learners to do the mindfulness stuff, don't do the mindfulness stuff. But it's like, that bothers me in itself, because you're not the one complaining. Other people are complaining that you're offering this service for a fee. And it always baffles me, because you're not forcing people to use you. There's no mandatory. So if you were to go, again, I don't want to use you as the example. I use myself as the example. If I was to go out and advertise my premium subscription, well, people can scroll past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think sometimes, I've posted things and they haven't been shown on certain Facebook groups. And I wonder is it because I'm selling a service in their view. But then I've had other people speak to me about it and say, that sounds really interesting. It's something I could probably do with. And we're all in this together. We all relate to the same problems, be it muscle tension, stress, pupil stress, diary management, all that stuff. We're all affected by the same stuff. And I've found a way that has helped me massively. So why would I not want to share that with people? Of course, I want to go, hey, look, I've done this. I've learned about this. It's really helped. It's amazing, and it's changed my life. And I want to share it with as many people as possible. Be that ADIs, and obviously with the MBSR, it's like under Cotswold Mindfulness. I've got cotswoldmindfulness.com, where I do mindfulness photography as well. So there's other areas of mindfulness that I work in too. But I'm passionate about this work, and I really believe in it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that with the groups and stuff, when I first started doing the podcast, I would go and post in every group. It was just like, okay, this is how we do it, because I see other instructors do it that way, and I'd go and post in every group. I'm a bit more selective now, so I occasionally do it in a couple of other places, but I tend to have 3 groups I post in at different times on a Sunday, because I try not to be massively spammy.
Yeah, there is that to consider, and I'm a bit green on that respect. I don't quite know what's always kind of exactly like where, how, what time, and how much. I'm a bit like, I don't know the best way, but no, yeah, I know what you mean.
Right. Well, I now have our next guest ready to join us, so I'm going to bring in Emma. I'm going to let you just say hello, and then I don't know if I'm going to kick you out. I think you might have to leave.
Okay.
One way or another.
I'll say hello, and then I'll leave you to it. But thank you ever so much. It's been brilliant. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Have a great
anyone
day.
listening or anyone watching,
And
make sure
get somebody to make you a cup of tea.
I've got bottles of water here.
What your whistle, as my mum says. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, you're making the disabled husband bring you cups of tea. Emma Morgan joins us now. Emma Morgan.
I'll leave you to it, guys. Cheers.
Well, just before I disappear, Sam,
okay.
Emma, Sam has said that her favourite decade is the 1980s.
Yes, I heard it's a good call. It's a really good call. It's not as good as the 90s, but it's a good second.
Yeah. 80s, 90s, yeah. They sort of blend a little bit, yeah. All good.
Great. Well, thank you for being guest one on the podcast Extravaganza, Sam. It's an absolute delight, as always.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, guys. All the best. Have a good session. Cheers. See you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.